Today on the Daily Scoop podcast from the Scoop News Group. Thousands of civil servants' passwords have been exposed since early 2024, according to a new report. And a former OSTP director from the Biden administration says Trump funding cuts are an assault on public research investment. It's Friday, October 17th, 2025. Welcome to the Daily Scoop podcast, where you'll hear the latest news and trends facing government leaders. I'm the host of the Daily Scoop podcast, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for joining me. Now let's dive into the day's top headlines. A new report from the password management company NordPass is challenging the idea that federal institutions are more secure than local governments against cybersecurity threats. The study, conducted by NordPass and threat exposure management platform NordStellar, found a total of 53,070 passwords belonging to U.S. civil servants that were exposed in public sources since the beginning of 2024. Of the impacted institutions, NordPass found the Department of Defense had 1,897 total exposed passwords, 222 of which were unique. The State Department had 15,272 total exposed passwords, 190 of which were unique, while the U.S. Army had 1,706 exposed passwords, 176 of them unique. The Department of Veterans Affairs also ranked among the top 5 most affected institutions with 1,331 total password exposures, 53 of which were unique. 7 passwords from White House employees were also compromised, according to the study. A State Department spokesperson told FedScoop the agency is committed to cybersecurity across the department and said the agency has instituted multi-factor authentication and regularly rotates credentials. The VA and the Pentagon did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The report stated, quote, although the majority of exposed credentials were traced back to regional and municipality level institutions like administrations and local governments, the national and federal government weren't spared by cyber criminals either, unquote. Other heavily impacted public sector institutions included the Washington, D.C. government, where 57 unique passwords were exposed, the city of Virginia Beach, Virginia, with 46 exposed unique passwords, and the Illinois government. NordPass noted that public sector employees were more likely to adhere to password standards set by the National Institute of Standards and Technology and more often use complex sequences, mixing letters, numbers, and symbols. Now in other news, a Biden-era director of the White House's Office of Science and Technology Policy slammed the Trump administration's cuts to research and development funding Wednesday, warning of adverse effects to areas such as artificial intelligence. Arati Prabhakar said during a panel held by Harvard's Kennedy School, quote, today what we are in the middle of is an assault on the public investment in research, unlike anything we have seen in our country's history, unquote. Prabhakar specifically pointed to the Trump administration's moves to withdraw support from certain projects, its removal of federal workers at research agencies, its attacks on universities, reversal of immigration policies that bring talent to the U.S., and the administration's budget proposal that sought to cut federal R&D spending by roughly $44 billion. She added that, quote, we've never seen anything like this, and it is extremely destructive to the science and technology enterprise today, unquote, calling it even more concerning the damage it's doing for Americans' future because public investment isn't being made. For Prabhakar, R&D spending has been a frequent topic in public remarks. During her time leading OSTP, Prabhakar similarly spoke about how a lack of public research funding for AI stands in the way of the technology reaching its potential, and before the end of the Biden administration, warned of potential cuts under the then incoming president. On Wednesday, she reiterated those positions and indicated that the damage has already been done. While companies tend to invest R&D dollars in things that can be turned into products and drive profits, public investments are aimed at specific areas like national security, health, energy, and the environment that have public benefit, Prabhakar said, though those investments can ultimately benefit the private sector as well. For more news at the intersection of the federal government and technology, make sure to visit fedscoop.com. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Daily Scoop podcast, available on all podcast platforms. If you've already rated the podcast on your platform of choice, thanks so much. High ratings and good reviews of the show help more people to find it. The Daily Scoop podcast is a production of the Scoop News Group in Washington, D.C. Adam Butler and Carlin Fisher help put the show together, and the entire Scoop News Group team contributes. We'll be back next week with more top headlines. Until then, I'm your host, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for listening.